Namaste and Vanakkam. First of all, I extend my sincere thanks to all the organizers of this historic two-day national seminar on revolutionary movement, the missing pages from history, for inviting me to be part of this seminar. Particularly, I am grateful and thankful to Professor Himanshu Chaturvedi, Dr. Om Upadhyay, and all my friends, colleagues, and budding historians. I am so happy to see you all this wonderful morning. Just wanted to start my discussion by asking you three quick questions to make relevant why this seminar is important today. आपसे कितने लोगों को चिदंबरम पिल्लई का नाम सुना है? चिदंबरम पिल्लई का नाम? Budding historians? Okay, great. आपसे कितने लोगों को रॉबर्ट एश का नाम सुना है? From Tirunelveli, Robert Ash. Okay. And आपसे कितने लोगों को वांचीनाथन अय्यर का नाम सुना है? वांचीनाथन अय्यर. So that says a lot why we are talking about the missing pages of history. So it is in this context, I'll just quickly share my thoughts on revolutionary nationalism in South India. As a student of history, I am fully convinced with historian R.G. Collingwood's idea of history that every new generation must write and rewrite history in its own way. And I have an unshakable conviction that historians should not be satisfied by answering to old questions. Rather, we should revise questions and ask new questions. So we are here today not just to listen to speakers, but also think of asking some critical questions about why we are talking about nationalism, why we are talking about revolutionary nationalism, and the relevance today. And I also want to share what R.C. Majumdar said. Every new historian must take account of new facts or new interpretation of known facts. Because at the end of the day, we should never forget this. History is a continuous process of interaction between past and present, and an unending dialogue between historians and our facts. Now, I think it's very important, as R.G. Collingwood says, we have to ask new questions. I always begin my talk by asking new questions as a student of history. So what are my questions? Maybe the questions obviously differ from person to person. And my questions on revolutionary nationalism in South India is, why there is a need to talk about revolutionary nationalism in South India, even after almost 120 years of the partition of Bengal, which subsequently triggered the ideas of boycott and Sudeshism all over India? Why there is a need? Second question is, there is always a conception or misconception that South India was the most peaceful presidency. This is actually a colonial construct. And was Madras presidency completely free from popular discontents, as it is often claimed by the British colonists, or the history is something else? This is why I want all of you to ask questions so that we can think of writing and rewriting history. And the third important question, which is also closely linked with the second question, is what was the cultural background of revolutionary nationalism? Because there are always claims and counterclaims that nationalism is nothing but an 18th century European phenomenon. But there is also a view that it is not an Indian phenomenon. But my argument is nationalism is deeply rooted in the cultural fabrics of the Indian society. And therefore, nationalism is as old as culture itself. And the fourth question, which is the final one, what was the ways in which Tirunelveli conspiracy case was understood? Tirunelveli, and now we call it Tirunelveli, in southern part of Tamil Nadu, and also basically from Tirunelveli districts. So I know actually at least some of the historical aspects why this place completely ignored or not given adequate importance in the history so far. So it is my duty therefore as a student of history to share some thoughts about the revolutionary nationalism that South India, particularly Tamil Nadu, witnessed in the first half of the 20th century. So coming back to the first question, why there is a need to talk about revolutionary nationalism in Madras presidency even after 120 years of partition of Bengal? So I think it's very important. If you see newspapers, you will find there is a very, very controversial narrative coming up by the Dravidian politics. So the Dravidian politics and the ideologues of the Dravidian politics continue to claim that the person who killed Ash, he was none other than the collector of Tirunelveli district. There are different narratives. One such narrative is the person who killed was not a nationalist. He was portrayed as a casteist because he was a Brahmin who killed Vanchinadu, who killed the collector Ash, Robert Ash. The person who killed was Vanchinadu Iyer. He was supposed to be the Brahmin, and therefore the Dravidian politics are doing politics over his name and his identity, and therefore he is even today depicted as not a nationalist and patriot, but on the contrary he is projected as someone who is closely connected to his caste and therefore casteist. And therefore we need to think and ask very, very critical questions. And we always know history as a contested terrain is often used, sometimes misused, consciously by certain sections of the society. And these political parties in South India, particularly in Madras presidency or in modern day Tamil Nadu, continue to claim that Vanchinadu was neither a nationalist nor a patriot but a casteist. It was his caste motive that led to the killing of the collector Robert Ash, who was, according to the Dravidian ideologue, was on the project of uplifting the supposedly marginalized section, and therefore Vanchinadu Iyer even today is depicted not as a nationalist. So now my question to all budding historians, how do we see this? How do we respond to such narrative? And as I consult some of the original sources, particularly DDU Gorakhpur papers, vernacular newspapers, the company, the British started fighting, and the British traders and the British officials who were determined to ruin this Swadeshi steam navigation company. So the most important aspect why the revolutionary nationalism became important or became inevitable in the Madras presidency is because it is the colonial government that wanted to suppress the Swadeshi steam navigation company. And therefore my question 4 becomes relevant. How did the ideologies of the revolutionary leaders, particularly D.D.U. Gorakhpur in Madras presidency, intensified patriotic consciousness, which led to the killing of the British bureaucrat Robert Ashe? And the killing or the political assassination was the only political assassination Madras presidency witnessed. And remaining, there were always popular discontents among people of all sections of the society. So now it's very important. VOC took active part in politics in Madras presidency. He was a member of the Indian National Congress, and particularly in the Surat session, he supported Tilak. And the history, therefore, is very important. How the revolutionary nationalism is very, very closely linked with the cultural nationalism in India. So, for example, in his speeches, VOC or Gorakhpur continued to caution the British owners who were owning some mills in Uttar that they would not continue to live as parasites sucking the blood of English, and therefore they had to be very careful while handling the Indian workers. And the ways in which Tilak continued to make speeches and write nationalistic sentiments attracted a great deal of attention of people like VOC. And here, the colonial official therefore wanted to challenge the controversial ideas and the nationalist ideas and the patriotic feelings of VOC. Now, both VOC and another colleague, Subramanian Siva and Subramanian Bharati, also played a very important role in challenging the dominance of the British. Now, I think it's very important. The most important reason, at least as part of my research, it is this anti-colonial sentiments created a revolutionary feelings among some young minds. So this is very important. There are two narratives about the Tirunelveli riots. The Tirunelveli riots also followed, or most importantly, as a result of the anti-colonial sentiments. This took place in 1908. And the revolutionaries therefore maintained that the government was ruthless in its attack that terrorized people and killed some of them. In the Tirunelveli riots, we have the history that there are 4 people killed, and this attracted a great deal of reactionary response among people like the Vajina and Iyer. So now the question is the making of political assassination, as I have already told you. This is very important, and this attracted a mixed responses. This created a mixed response among the people. I am not saying it was completely accepted by all sections of the society. The model was criticized, and the vernacular newspapers, particularly the Swadeshi, also says that we did not expect a Brahmin who would kill Ashe. So this was a caste person. So now it is therefore the killing of the collector of Tirunelveli has created mixed responses. Now it is in this context when I look at why this killing became inevitable. What was the actual reason? Why Ash was killed? I'll just quickly take 2 minutes and I'll wind it up. One of the approvers, if you read some of the judgments of this killing, it is stated that one of the approvers, Somasundaram Pillai, continued to quote Vanchinathan Iyer as saying that the Tinnavelli character Ash was actually responsible for the ruining of Swadesh's steam navigation company. This is actually on record. Secondly, Vanchinathan therefore realized that Ash must be killed first. And similarly, I have to contextualize Madam Bikaji Kama here because in a controversial speech, writing before the killing and after the killing is very important. For example, before the killing, Madam Bikaji Kama in April 1911 gave a clarion call to all the Indians, I quote, "The Englishman is a snake and he must be thrashed and killed wherever he is found. With gentlemen, we can be gentlemen, but not with scoundrels. It is not a shame if an Indian student shoots down his English professor, if an Indian clerk shoots down an English superior, if an Indian barrister shoots down the English judge, and an Indian patient shoots down an English doctor in a meeting, on the railway, or in a carriage, or in a shop, or in a church, in a garden, or at a fair, wherever an opportunity comes, Englishman ought to be killed." Unquote. So this is one of the very important controversial speeches, but this speech was translated in Tamil and was circulated widely. Now, I think it is very important, after Vanchinathan Iyer killed the character, we have reports of the government, colonial government, that he kept one writing in his packets. So what he had to say about the killing? Because it was not proved, because he, after killing the character, he committed suicide by shooting himself. Now the only evidence that we have is his writings that was found in his package. Now what he had to say, why he has killed, as I quote him, is very important. This was published in the Confidential Intelligence Report, 1907-1917. He says, I quote him, "The militias of England having captured our country tread underfoot the Sanatan Dharma of the Hindus and destroy it. Every Indian is trying to drive out the English and restore Swarajya and Sanatan Dharma. Our Rama, Shiva, Krishna, Guru Gobind and Arjun rule over our land, protecting all religions. But now they are preparing to crown in this land George V, a military who eats the flesh of cows. 3,000 Madrasis have taken a vow to kill George V as soon as he lands in our country. To make known our intention to others, I have done this deed. This day, every man in Hindustan should consider this his duty." So this was his writings, which is very much there in the Confidential Intelligence Report. Now we know, even though we are not able to get exactly after the death, because we have to believe at least what was found. Now it's important. I would like to summarize here what is the connection between Swaraj, revolutionary nationalism, and spirituality. I find in my research these are all connected basically. You cannot understand Swaraj without understanding the spirituality which is deeply rooted in the society, and therefore, again, I am quoting one of the very important writings of Arvind Ghosh. He says, I am going back to the roots of Swaraj. For example, even after the assassination of Tinnavelli collector, I am using Arvind Ghosh remark here. Even after assassinating the Tinnavelli collector Robert Ashe, Arvind Ghosh continued to caution the nationalist leaders that they should stop the old way of doing politics by prayers, persuasions, and all this moderate way of doing politics. And he argued persuasively that spirituality is India's only politics, and the fulfillment of the Sanatana Dharma could be its only Swaraj. I repeat here, spirituality is India's only politics, and the fulfillment of the Sanatana Dharma could be its only Swaraj. And therefore, my concluding remarks is, this critical study of revolutionary nationalism reveals that ideas of patriots are rooted deeply and essentially in the ideas of spiritualism or spirituality, patriotism, nationalism, and Swadeshism. Hence, the Chauvinistic considerations, as some would keen to imagine, particularly Dravidian politics in Tamil Nadu, hardly have any place in their struggle for Swaraj in India and Madras presidency in particular. Jai Hind.